Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mitch Taco Bell. I am a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel, and today is Tuesday, and we like to call this Tall Tales with Taco on Tuesday. It's a live feed that I've just been working on over the years as a joke, but I've really thought about taking this seriously just to talk to some of my friends. I've got a range of very interesting friends, and last week we started with Scott Gibson, who was in the HBO hit series The Pacific, and he played Captain Haldane, the company commander of K-35. How did he become the Marine officer that was portrayed on the film? Well, you know what? He had a technical advisor. He had somebody that mentored him and helped him become the actor on the screen that you saw so well, portrayed so well. And that person is Captain Dale Dye, United States Marine Corps retired, and also probably the core reason that there are so many hits out in LA and if it deals with a war film. I'm going to bring Dale on here. And Dale, welcome aboard, sir. How are you?
Fine, Taco. How are you and your in-laws' house?
I tell you what, it was nerve-wracking this morning to wake up and find out my entire internet for the neighborhood is down. I don't know, somebody hit something digging. But
yeah, it's doom when the internet goes down. So.
It is, because this is a big day for me. You're a friend, and you're doing this as a friend for me. But holy crap, you're sitting there going, "I've got to make this work." What am I going? Starbucks, McDonald's? No, I go to my in-laws' place, and look, they even let me put my. I was going to show you this, my going away present from 8th Marine Corps District when I retired in 2015.
Yeah, I saw that. No expense spared, no holds barred, Taco. That's you. I got it, buddy.
Hey, I wanted to start off with you. All right, so 20 years with the Marine Corps. You joined in 64. You were what, 18?
Yeah, I think so. 18, maybe a skosh older than that, 18 and a half, something like that. Right in that ballpark.
And next thing you
know better.
Yeah, and next thing you know, you're over in Vietnam, right?
Yeah. It wasn't long. A couple of years, I guess. I did at Pendleton and some other West Coast commands. And then, the war heated up, and I was always a firm believer in what Ernest Hemingway had to say, and that was that war is man's greatest adventure. And so I wanted a piece of that, and I got it.
You were in the Battle of Hue, which is very famous for Marines, urban combat, which was portrayed in Full Metal Jacket in that war scene. But
yeah.
What were you also in Khe Sanh?
Yes, I was at Khe Sanh for about a week, and then flew out. Managed to fly out. Thank God for some fine C-130 crews, and then ended up going back in on an operation in, I think it was August of '68, or maybe, yeah, probably it was the summer of '68. When we broke up the North Vietnamese encirclement in the Khe Sanh Valley,
right?
On an operation called Pegasus, and so up we went to back to Khe Sanh. So yeah, I did Hue, Khe Sanh, the hill fights. I got my nose in as much of it as I could stand.
Well, how Full Metal Jacket, how was that portrayed? Did you think they did a pretty good job on that?
No, frankly, I thought, especially when it came to Hue, Gustav Hansard's book. Now you have to understand, Gustav wrote a book called The Short Timers,
right?
And that was purchased and then adapted for the screen by Stanley Kubrick and Michael Herr and a number of other folks. The MacGuffin, the big event in Gustav's book is the Battle for Hue. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the way it was portrayed in the film, which, by the way, was shot in an abandoned old gas plant east of London,
right?
And did not look a lot like Hue. The way it was portrayed, it seemed like the entire battle in Hue was about chasing one female Viet Cong sniper. I am here to disabuse you of that notion. It was not that.
Right.
It was frankly a bitch kitty. It was one of the most extraordinarily tough, bloody, nonstop, exhausting fights I've ever heard about or been in. And it was a strange deal, Taco. There were Hue in the northern part of South Vietnam is a city that's divided by the Perfume River, and the south side of it is more sort of a modern city. Think Keokuk, Iowa, or something like that. And then when you cross to the north side, you run into this extraordinary medieval castle, which was about 1 kilometer square.
Right.
And it was surrounded by a moat, and it had old portcullis gates and 40-foot thick apron walls. And then within those walls was a sort of a lean-to shanty city that had sprung up. So in effect, when it was bad enough on the south side,
Right.
where we really had to sort of learn urban warfare. They call it MOUT these days, Military Operations in Urban Terrain. I have my own acronym. I call it FISH, which is fighting in someone's house, which I always thought was more appropriate. But we had to learn how to do that. No one had any training for that, really.
Right. And you guys have been dealing with jungle environment the entire time.
Climb the jungle hill and kill the bad guy and climb back down the jungle hill. That was kind of our MO.
Right.
And then along comes Hue, and we're in a street fight, and you had to learn by doing, and that's a bloody way to learn when it comes to combat. Every round that's fired in an urban setting, it's doubled. The effect is doubled or tripled because of the shrapnel effect. I mean, rock shards and concrete pieces will kill you just as easy as a bullet will. So we had to learn what we were doing there on the south side, and then go over to the north side, cross the river, in a classic Marine amphibious assault, cross the river, and then attack this damn castle. And we were attacking from the inside out. It was a genuine meat grinder is the best way to talk about it, I guess.
Did you have good Cobra support, air support, or anything like that? Or is it pretty difficult since it's the city?
There were difficulties with all kinds of fire support in Hue, Taco, because the South Vietnamese government and by extension the Military Assistance Command, our command, didn't want to destroy those ancient buildings and
the Citadel and all that.
The Citadel especially. And so at first, naval gunfire, airstrikes, and heavy artillery, they just refused to let us use it.
Right.
And we had some pretty hard-headed and caring Marine leaders, like Ernie Cheatham, for instance, and they just said, look, here's the deal. I'm not going to kill any more Marines. You're going to let us hit that and live with it. And they did. So we did get some good air support. What I remember particularly on the north side were the little scooters, the A4s, the Skyhawks that were coming in.
Really?
They were coming in off of the carriers offshore or out of Da Nang Air Base, which was south of us.
Right.
And these little scooters, I mean, that's a very small jet attack aircraft.
Right.
And man, they could just get right down on the deck and wave at you and say how you doing, and then drop snake and napalm. But they were terrific. I also remember the F8s, the Crusaders. They were the last of the gunfighters.
Right.
And they would come in, and you could literally see the pilot walking on his rudder pedals to jerk that nose around so that he could get a spray with his cannon and machine guns.
Right.
So those things were really valuable, and in my view, it showed the world that the Marine Air Ground Team
Hmm.
was a viable combat asset all the way. And having those fixed wing assets available to you, as well as rotary wing assets,
Sure.
was really the way to fight.
Have you spoken to any of our modern day guys that went through Fallujah and kind of compared notes between when you were in Way and the Battle of Fallujah in '04? You know what those guys went through door to door with the bad guys stacked up
Yeah,
waiting for them.
yeah. I've lectured a couple of times at a what they call a mount instructors course
Hmm.
down at Pendleton, and that was just full of guys who had fought in Fallujah. And we'd drink a beer and just outside the academic environment, we'd talk about it.
Right.
And there were an enormous amount of similarities. We encountered in Hue more dual story buildings than they did in Fallujah,
Right.
and they were smarter about using armor than we were in Hue. Um, and the similarities, what really struck me as similar was how close quarters it is. I mean, it was shocking to me, frankly, because up to the point at Hue, for the most part, I had fired at muzzle flashes or fleeting shadows in the jungle. But you get into a thing like Hue or Fallujah.
And it makes it real.
Oh, yeah, listen, you're looking right into his beady ass eyeballs, and he's looking into yours, and last man standing.
Yeah.
And the guys said it was exactly that way in Fallujah. You had to be aware of everything because there are so many places to hide in an urban environment.
Sure.
The guy's in a damn clothing closet, when you come in, and suddenly there he is. So they had that experience in Fallujah, and certainly it reflected the experience that we had in Hue.
Kind of crazy. You think 50 years later they're using the same AK-47s, the same RPGs, duking it out,
Yeah, yeah, and it was interesting. We encountered the M16 was having birthing troubles, at least in the Marine Corps in those
Right.
days, and there were Marines who didn't want to carry it, didn't trust it. And what I remember is on the south side, we broke into a South Vietnamese armory
Oh,
where
really?
they had stored weapons. And it was like with the Marines, it was like kids in a candy store. I mean, here were M1 rifles and Browning automatic rifles, and oh my God, Thompson submachine guns, and M1 carbines, and of course, every one of us grabbed one. I grabbed a Thompson submachine gun and carried it,
Yeah.
because I like that big slug of lead moving at a relatively slow speed.
Did you have the sticks or the drum?
No, I had the sticks. They
Uh,
didn't. There weren't any. It was not the 28 model, and I didn't see any drum magazines.
right.
But I quickly learned that submachine guns eat ammunition,
Right.
and you're carrying 4 or 5 sticks of 30 rounds of 45 ACP. That's heavy as hell. I mean,
Right.
at some point, you say, wait a minute, I hope this is worth it, just to look like GI Joe, which I did.
Sure.
But I carried a carbine for a while, and I threw that one away. It was no kinetic energy to the round, and I carried a Thompson for a while, which I have to admit I was showboating a bit.
So I imagine you went from Vietnam, you went back to the States, you did some stateside tours, and then not much longer after that, you're in Lebanon doing peacekeeping.
Yeah, a lot of things happened in the meantime. Mother Corps decided that for some reason that no one will ever understand, I should have been commissioned. And so after about 13 years as an NCO, they decided to send me to Quantico. And
Oh my God, you're one of those warrant officers that we hated because you guys knew your buddies told you where the map
Yeah,
course was.
yeah, we
You
knew
guys went out
everything.
there,
Yeah.
you buried food, you knew where the bivouac was going to be.
Oh,
You guys were out
absolutely.
there cooking, having a good old time.
We were having a great time. But because I didn't have a college degree at the time,
Uh-huh.
I was forced to be to go through the warrant officer program, which I did, and thank God I did. I really enjoyed being a warrant officer. But you know, that was part of the stateside tour, and suddenly my life as a Marine changed entirely because now I was an officer.
Right.
And I did a number of very interesting tours overseas and stateside.
What'd you
Uh,
do?
well, the most interesting one I think was early on, before I got my commission. I finished my last tour in Vietnam in I think it was May of '70,
Uh-huh.
and the Marine Corps decides in her wisdom that the place to send a guy who was a 3-tour veteran and wearing Purple Hearts and had seen a lot of combat, the place to send him would be the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Right in the middle of all the anti-war protests and
Right.
everything else. And it was a dress blue billet. You know, I was a gunnery sergeant at the time, and I had to wear dress blues every day. So I had to drive through all of the protesters in the Pentagon. But the interesting thing was that I bought a motorcycle,
Uh-huh.
and I got one of these Captain America helmets
Uh-huh.
from Easy Rider, so it had stars and stripes on it, and
Yeah.
and I got ape hanger bars on the motorcycle, and I would drive it through the protesters, and that was a joy. But my career's been full of weird assignments like that, and the neat thing about it, in my view, was that I never got bored. Lord knows, if it was a boring assignment, I found some way to unbore it.
Sure. Well, what was your MOS? What'd you do mainly? I mean, you went from
Well,
infantry to.
yeah, I started as an infantryman, and then I ran into a guy who said, "Look," and he showed up, I think, at some training exercise when I was a corporal or something,
Mhm.
and he had a camera around his neck, and he had a little notebook, and he was going out and interviewing people, and I finally said, "Hey, who are you, and what do you do?" And he said, "Well, look, I'm a public affairs guy. I'm a Marine Corps combat correspondent."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "You're a what?" Never heard of it. And he said, "Listen, between you and me, it is the greatest dodge, the greatest gig there is in the Marine Corps." He said, "There's only a handful of us." But
Right.
he said, "We can go anywhere and do absolutely anything if we're capable of, writing a little story about it
Sure.
and providing some coverage for, at that time, base newspapers and Stars and Stripes and Navy
Mhm.
Times and so on and so forth." And I had gotten bored following the other guy's pack up and down a hill carrying a mortar base plate. So
So
I
you
said,
became Joker.
yeah, I said, "Hey, I think I can do this." And I managed to get myself interviewed and tested, and they decided, yeah, I could do this. So my MOS got changed, and for the rest of my time as a senior NCO and as a warrant, and then as when I converted my commission, I served as a public affairs officer.
Oh, wow. That is so incredible. And then in 80, when did you go to Beirut? In 82? Or
82, yeah.
so you were over
Just
there for the multinational peacekeeping.
Yeah, we were evacuating Yasser Arafat and
Uh-huh.
uh, and remnants of the PLO, and so I went over to augment the unit that was there at that time, and
Uh-huh.
then stayed as the command spokesman and kind of the press rep for I think 3 different MOUs, and got out of there around April or May of '83. And of course they hit the barracks in October
October, yeah.
of '83. But it was an interesting assignment, and I really got my first look at the situation in the Middle East,
Hmm.
vis-a-vis sectarian fighting and so on and so forth. because I had no clue about that. Like
Right.
everybody else in the Marine Corps, I was kind of focused on the Pacific and Asia, and suddenly here we are, in the Middle East, and I was able, because of my assignment, I was able to kind of study it rather than just react. I was able to talk to Muslims of various sects
Right. Right.
and find out what was going on. And it was an eye opener, certainly was. And frankly, we knew as the mission in Beirut, what was called the mission was presence,
Right.
to whatever the hell that means, to sort of augment peacekeeping in the Middle East between the Israelis and elements in Lebanon, and it really, we knew as the mission progressed and little things began to change, we knew something was going to happen.
Right.
And
They're getting more
frankly,
bolder, or what?
well,
In their attacks, they did attack the embassy when you were there.
yeah,
If I
they
remember
did.
right.
They did, and that was a precursor. That was a wake up call.
Right.
And we started to send messages that we had a dual chain of command, the military chain of command and the State Department chain of command, which had no damn business in the military milieu at all, but there we
Right.
were. And we began to see things happening that anybody who's got any combat sense at all says, "Uh-oh, here it comes."
Right.
And yet we had such stupid and restrictive rules of engagement put on us.
I want to ask you about that.
Well,
In 80, I joined in 86, and in 88, as I'm a second lieutenant, one of the guys was a MESEPper, had been enlisted, and he was in Beirut. And so here he is in his Charlies. We don't have anything. He's got a whole rack of ribbons, and he would tell stories about. He goes, "We're sitting on the wall, and I see this guy with an AK-47 or RPG. He walks across the street, goes up, shoots at us. As he shoots at us, then I could return fire, and then I'd watch the guy stop, and he would walk across the street, get a cup of coffee, do whatever. He's got his AK-47 slung. He would go up the next building, shoot at us. Well, we could only shoot like kind, right? AK-47, M16. So then we started calling in, hey, we're taking 51 millimeter rounds or something like that. And then they'd shoot the 50 cal and take the guy out. But I heard a story about you, the Phantom Mortar team, or Phantom Mortar Menace. What was that about?
Well, my early days in the Marine Corps, I was a mortarman, an 81 millimeter mortarman, and I knew the weapon pretty well, and I knew the firing drills and so on and so forth. And there was a time at which we weren't allowed to return any fire.
Right.
We had a 105 millimeter artillery battery, or maybe it was 155 artillery battery ashore, but they couldn't return. We were taking rockets and incoming from the Shuf mountains, where the Druze Muslims were. That was their kingdom, and we weren't allowed to shoot back. So
how frustrating is that? Sounds like Afghanistan right now,
Yeah. The more we screw up, the more we repeat it. But
right.
The battery wasn't allowed to actually return high explosive fire, so they would fire illumination rounds up over the Shuf, and somehow that was supposed to intimidate the guys who were firing these Katyusha rockets at us. Well, that wasn't working. So I invented a scheme that there was a way that we might, unbeknownst to anybody else, we might be able to return a little HE, and it had to do with a captured mortar tube and some expertise in fire control and a number of other things, and that's as far as I'm going with that.
All right, sounds like a beer story when we're alone. That's going to be funny. I love it. So you get around the rules a little bit and work it in your favor. Got it.
Initiative. You have to figure this out, and we did.
It. So you went from Beirut back. Did you finish up in the 8th Marine Corps District as a public affairs officer?
I did, yeah. They for some reason they thought I would be good on recruiting duty.
Uh-huh. No, you are. You are.
Well, perhaps I thought a little less of it, but it I think what had happened in Beirut in October of '83, truthfully, had sort of broken my warrior spirit,
Right.
uh, and that's dangerous. I remember in I think it was February of '76 when I was first commissioned. I was at Quantico and I was getting ready to go down for the ceremony, to have our bars pinned on, and I was shaving that morning, and I was, as I shaved, I began to sort of review my career, and
Right.
because it was a significant milestone. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and saying, this is a big deal. You're
Sure.
about to take on a commission that will put you in charge of many, many more Marines than you were as an enlisted man.
Right.
And the decisions you have to make will be more significant and more potentially dangerous. And so what I kind of promised myself at that moment, I said, look, when the day comes that you can't look at your Marines and say, follow me, it is
Right.
necessary that we die. When that day comes, it's time for you to quit.
Right.
And then I just didn't think about it anymore until Beirut. And then when they hit the Mao, the battalion landing team headquarters, which is what it
Right.
was. It wasn't a Marine barracks, although almost a battalion's worth of us lived in there.
Yeah.
It and they killed so many of them, and we had warned them that something like this was coming.
Hmm.
It sort of broke my warrior spirit. I said, maybe that's enough. And so I had enough time in to retire, and I was not enjoying recruiting duty.
Oh, come on, man.
Now,
Thank you, Commandant. I had that sign. Thank you, Commandant, for assigning me to the 8th Marine Corps District,
it had a lot in common with a Hoover vacuum cleaner in my view, and a Hoover vacuum cleaner sucks and blows. So that was my opinion of recruiting duty.
It's funny, though. I spent 9 years on total in recruiting duty, and I loved it. It was a good time, from being the district aviator, flying college kids around, to being the reserve support officer. And I enjoyed it, but I wasn't on the bag for, a million bodies either.
Yeah, and you're that kind of guy, Taco. I mean, you always have been. You can sell me crap I don't want. I mean, you're that guy. I was a little less than that by a long shot, I think. So I decided, maybe I'll just get out here.
So you did the
And I had,
change. You went to Hollywood, and what people don't realize is the amount of work that you put into it to find a way. There's a Marine, there's a will, there's a way. You found a way to get in and get in front of Oliver Stone to make a $5 million movie that went on to become an Academy Award winning production, and then launches your career in a direction that you probably never saw coming. I mean, when you plan this out, you're probably thinking little bites of the alligator, of the elephant. You didn't realize you're going straight into.
No, I certainly did. I did some soul searching in at the end of my Marine Corps career,
Uh-huh.
and I did a couple of other things. I worked for a while for Soldier of Fortune magazine, and I was casting about for something that would fit me. I knew that I'd been shot too many times to want to be a cop on
Right.
America's main streets. And I knew that if I became a cubicle rat at some defense contractor, I'd be a suicide in 6 months.
Somebody walk into your cubicle, you have American flag hanging over, and suck starting to 45. I got you.
Yeah,
I'm the same way.
It was that deal. Or, I would devolve into the barfly down at the local VFW, and we've all run into that guy, and I
Right.
didn't want to do that. So I was at a bit of a loss. but I'd always been a creative guy. I mean, I'm the guy that can tell you a Shaggy Dog story with a one line punch, and make it last for 45 minutes. I mean, I'm that guy. I
Yeah, yeah.
always have been that guy. And I had that creative bent. I had written and published my first novel while I was still on active duty.
Oh,
And
really? I didn't know that.
yeah, that was Run Between the Raindrops. And so I knew there was something creative that I needed to do,
Uh-huh.
and to challenge me to keep my creative juices flowing.
Sure.
And I had always been a fan of war movies, Taco. I mean, I think I had seen every one there was.
Right.
And the common denominator was they all pissed me off, because they didn't reflect us. They
Sure.
were some other Hollywood pipe dream. Uh, and 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 as you say, you think about it as a Marine, and you say, well, this is screwed up. I have to unscrew it. I'll find a way to unscrew it.
Right.
And the neat thing is, when you're ignorant, and I certainly was, you can do a lot of things that people tell you you can't do. And that was it for me. I mean, I said, look, this isn't right. I'm going to go out there and grab somebody by the stacking swivel and jerk the operating rod smartly to the rear. I mean, I'm going to fix this. And of
Sure.
course, that reflects the fact that you have no clue how movies are made and what the hierarchy is.
Right.
And so I came out here to LA and tried to sell my program to people, um, not having much luck. They would look at me and they'd say, a couple of things here, pal. First, you spent 2 decades in uniform. And to us, that means you couldn't conceivably have a creative bone in your body. Or if you did, you'd be making movies and doing things that we're doing. So that
Right.
was one hurdle. The genuine Hollywood hubris that said that nobody who wore a uniform could possibly be a creative type, and that was a difficulty. And the other thing was, they would look at me and they'd say, so you have a better way to make war movies, to make military movies? And I say, yes, indeed, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
And let me tell you about it. I say, no. Before you do that, let me tell you that for 30 years, we have made military movies and war movies, and we've made $69 zillion doing it without your dumb ass. So disappear. And that was the kind of stuff I ran into.
So the mentality, though, is 90. I mean, so less than 1.01% of Americans serve in the cloth, right?
Yeah.
So their mentality is the average American Joe Blow who never served is not going to know the difference between this rifle, that rifle, this tank painted up with German SWAT, stickers, or this or that. And you're going in saying, I want to make this authentic. I want to make the guys tired. I want to make them camaraderie, because that's the whole band of brothers. I mean,
yeah, I'm going in saying, look, you're wrong.
Yeah.
People do know these things, and despite the fact that very few, relatively speaking, as a percentage of the overall population have served, what you're forgetting is that television is now ubiquitous. It's everywhere, and people see these things. They're bombarded with images, and if you show them a different image, they suffer from what the psychologists call cognitive disconnect. Cognitive disconnect, that is to say, I'm trying to convince you something that your eyes are telling you is one thing. I'm trying to tell you is another thing. And so that was my theory, was that they were wrong and I was right.
Mm-hmm.
But I was having a hell of a time selling it. And so I had learned while I was out here, just milling around trying to bump into people and find out how movies are made and who the power brokers are and that sort of thing. I'd learned to read the trade papers, Daily Variety, Hollywood Reporter. That's all of which are all online now.
Right.
And I discovered a mention in a little column that I think it was Army Archer's column that said that a heretofore relatively unknown writer-director by the name of Oliver Stone was going to make a movie, a feature
Wow.
film, based on his experiences as a combat infantryman in Vietnam. And I said, boy, there it is. I mean, a light went on,
Yeah.
but I had to find a way to get a hold of him. I mean,
Sure.
the one thing I had learned out here is that people who are relatively successful in the business immediately throw up gate guards, and you just can't get to them because everybody wants a little piece of showbiz, and everybody thinks they've got a better idea,
Right.
and there's so much money in it that it attracts people, who are just broke and don't have anything else to do, or dreamers, and God bless them. But showbiz doesn't really cultivate the dreamers anymore. It wants you to bring something solid to the table. And I didn't really have anything solid to bring to the table, and yet I had to find a way to get a hold of Oliver Stone. And there were several machinations involved in that, Taco. I'm not going to tell you about them at this point because I'm not sure the statute of limitations is. But I did manage to get a hold of him and his producer.
Right. So
And
as you put the actors through that mini boot camp, that was the start of your idea to get guys to get the bonding going that comes across on screen that we all experienced when we were out there in the suck. You
yeah,
were able to get that.
it was the beginning of the Captain Dime method,
Right.
which has now become sort of legendary, I guess. But I understood that what was missing. Look, we all know about the details in military movies. Wearing a beret that looks like a pie plate, or carrying an M16 in a World War II movie, or
Right.
ribbons all screwed up or worn on the wrong side, and chevrons on the arm and bars on the shoulder. I mean, we've all seen that crap.
Yeah.
And it takes us right out of the story. But I knew that was easily correctable. What wasn't easily correctable, and in my mind, what was more important, what was missing, was accurate portrayals of who we are,
Right.
and how we relate to each other, and how we think, and how we feel, how we talk. And you can't get there without understanding why.
Yeah.
And understanding why, or where that comes from, that's actor meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to not only lecture about that stuff. I mean, from your Marine Corps experience, I could stand up in front of you at a lectern and throw my hands around on big maps and so on and so forth, and your eyes glaze over, and maybe you picked up 10% of what I had to say. But if I get your dumb ass out there and make you walk the ground and experience it, boy, that imprints.
Sure.
You're not going to forget this. And that was the basis, essentially, of my theory in training actors, because our military experience is so alien to them.
Yeah.
That trying to explain it would have been, speaking Hungarian.
Sure.
They wouldn't get that. So I had to. My view was that I had to make them experience it, so that once they had experienced those weird emotions and those weird psychological situations, those weird relationships that we have with each other.
Yeah.
Once they experienced that, and I was able to then explain it to them, break it down to them, which is you have to be quite a bit of a psychologist in order to do that. Then the lessons really imprinted, and their relationships were genuine.
Did you have any issues with people going, well, this is my way and this is the way I do it, and you're like giving them the knife hand?
Yeah. Look, anybody is going to resist that. Hell, you and I resisted it in our basic training.
But no, not too often, or I got
well, yeah,
got thrashed pretty good.
You resisted it up here.
Yeah, maybe.
And of course, that's the barrier that you have to break. It's not a physical barrier; it's a psychological barrier. It's a mental barrier. And I knew that, and you'd know that, and anybody who's had our experience would know that. But actors don't, and so I would have to put them through that. And look, it was I isolated them and put them in a situation where it was live or die on the Captain Die highway. I mean,
Right.
it was my way or goodbye, and they
Right.
knew that. And that's a hell of a nice motivator. I mean, it's the same motivator that works at Quantico, Paris Island, or San Diego.
Yeah.
And so when you've got them captive in that situation, teaching is easy.
Yeah.
The subject is hard, but the classroom is right there, and that's what every leader really is a teacher and a mentor. And I understood that and applied that, and it worked magic.
Well, you know how you got that part in there, Captain Harris. Somebody told me I've got a friend, Carlton Cottle. He's a retired Army, and he and I were on a movie set for Army Marigeddon. It was a very small B movie, and we had all these extras, and the two of us were the only military guys there, and so we were trying to walk them through how to do a patrol, how to hold your weapons, what they're kind of doing, just basic stuff. And he's actually gone on to do really well, and he's making commercials, and he's getting casted for all these different things. And as we're having that conversation, he goes, acting for me, it's just being in front of my troops as an NCO. You're just put on a persona that you want to portray.
Sure.
And it's like a DI. It turns on their acting. They're an actor. They get done. They go home. They've got a wife and kids. They kick the boots off and have a beer like everybody else. But when they get inside, they're the devil.
Look, you'll never get professional military people to admit this, but the fact of the matter is that the professional military, whether you're an officer or enlisted, is absolutely the best acting school the world has ever known. I mean, you are forced over a career. You are forced to play so many roles, and you better play them convincingly if you want to survive and succeed. And so you learn to do that. You learn to perform. Just the first time you've got to do techniques of military instruction, and you have to stand up and do the attention getter and then feed your information and then summarize. And look, we do that in our sleep.
Sure.
Now, some do it better than others. Some have the kind of personality that just snaps right into that.
Yeah.
And is entertaining. I've always thought, and I think I've confirmed by the people I talk to, if you think about your teachers in life, whether they're military instructors or your grade school or high school teachers or your college instructors, the ones who entertained you kept your interest.
Right.
And
motivated
the ones who kept your interest conveyed the information, and the information stuck. And I've always thought that was true throughout. And so when I was inventing the Captain Die method of teaching actors, that was a big part of it. And I think that's really what Oliver Stone observed when I was doing the training. And remember, we were miles and miles and miles up in the mountains of the Philippines. So you had to trek to get up to where I was training these people. We were strictly isolated. No civilians around us anywhere. But Oliver would come up every once in a while to take a look at what was going on. And I think it was at that point when he saw me teaching that he decided I was going to be his Captain Harris, the company commander. And believe me, it was news. It was news to me.
But you not only are you first time out, and you're an actor who is incredible, comes across on the screen as incredible. So I'd be remiss if we didn't say happy birthday to Oliver Stone, because it is his birthday today.
Today, September 15th is Oliver's birthday.
And giving you the opportunity now. Fast forward. Modern times, we're looking at Band of Brothers. Absolutely one of my favorite. I bought my M1 Grand at the gun show so I could sit there and clean my M1 while I'm watching Band of Brothers every week when it came on. My wife would walk in and go, "What are you doing?" I've got the M1 spread out and I'm cleaning the parts, and I'm like, I'm just watching Band of Brothers and playing with the M1 because it feels sexy, So,
God bless her, Taco, that she puts up with crap like that. I get it. Yeah.
man, if she'd known how many guns I owned when we got married, she probably wouldn't have married me. But I tell you, I love Band of Brothers. Now, Band of Brothers versus Pacific. You took so long to film all the episodes in Band of Brothers, and Scott was explaining in the Pacific, you guys were able to film different episodes out of sequence at different times.
Yeah. We had 2 units running, so that we could bring it in under a year, and it was the same way with Band of Brothers. But there were big differences in the 2 productions, Taco.
Really?
Yeah, and it's our fault. Band of Brothers became a phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
It is a phenomenon to this day.
Mm-hmm.
It's if there's ever a Captain Die legacy, it's that.
Right.
That miniseries. But we let ourselves get carried away when we got to the Pacific. The story of the Marines and major fights in the Pacific. And here's the difference. In Band of Brothers, we focused on one rifle company of paratroopers. Easy Company, 2nd Battalion, 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment. And audiences over 10 episodes, audiences got to know those characters.
Right.
And care about those characters. Now, capitalizing on that success, we decided we're going to do the Pacific.
Which is massive. That's the problem.
Well, it's part of it. But we could have gotten away with it better. We could have done it better if we had done what we did in Band of Brothers. That is, pick one of those outfits and stay with it. Either 1st Marines with Lecky, or 7th Marines with Basilone, or 5th Marines with Sledge. But we kept bouncing around the 1st Marine Division to each one of those regiments. And we diluted the audience relationship, I think, with the main characters.
Right.
You didn't get to know the surrounding guys as well as you did in Band of Brothers. Now, it was a great miniseries, and I'm delighted as a Marine that we made it.
Right.
But we could have done better, and it never did get the following or the popularity that Band of Brothers did.
Well, it was Scott and I talked about that. It was 1 week you're watching Lucky, 1 week you're watching John Basilone, and to track it, you're right, it was hard. But I will tell you this: when R.V. Bergen passed away, who wrote Islands of the Dam, and he was with EB with Sledgehammer.
R.V. very well, yeah.
Yeah, R.V. had asked me years ago, "Hey, would you give my eulogy?" And I'm like, "No, yeah, all right, whatever, R.V." Thinking he'd forget about it, and sure enough, his daughter calls me up and goes, "Hey, Daddy said you were going to give his eulogy for the funeral, so we're going to have it on this date." I'm just going, there's Governor Perry sitting in the front row, a bunch of people, and then at the end of the funeral, up walks Scott Gibson. So I just want to tell you how well you did at an actor who portrayed his company as his company commander would take the time off to come down to RV's funeral just as a person. That to me said more about Scott Gibson and where did he learn that leadership from? Well, that was in him all the time, but he also was a student of yours, which shows leadership coming off for Scott as well. And I'm sure that's all the other actors gleaned a lot of this off, Captain Winters and the whole 9 yards.
It's a legacy thing, Taco. You're right. Scott Gibson is a great guy, a great man, and he's one of those actors that is so open to experiences and to thoughts and to feelings. He doesn't bring preconceptions into what he does.
Right.
That he was very easy to train. I was a little harder on him because I knew he was going to portray Ak Haldane.
Yeah.
I may have embarrassed him a time or two. I did it with the
utmost greatest respect for you, and he actually put a comment on there, said, "Looking good, Skipper. You were a great teacher and helped me tremendously with portraying Ak. Would not have been half as good without you. Many thanks, my friend. Semper Fi." Well, what an awesome guy.
Yeah, he's a terrific guy, and he always was. So my role with Scott in particular was simply to pull all that stuff out of him.
Uh-huh.
And to show it to him and say, look, you got this, man. This is you. This is what's in your heart. This is what's in your gut. This is what's in your head. And he's smart enough to recognize it. He said,
Yeah.
aha. So you could see with Scott, there were moments where the light would go on. You'd see his eyes light up, and he'd say, ha ha. He wouldn't say anything, but I knew from looking at his beady ass eyeballs that he had suddenly had a revelation here. It was epiphany time with Scott, and he had a number of those. And the neat thing was with him, he never forgot them. Once he would have one of those epiphany moments, that was imprinted with Scott Gibson, and he would take it right to the bank.
Well, you and Freddie definitely had a lot of persuasion over him and the training and whatnot. And I told Freddie I was going to get him on the show too and talk about kind of stuff they do to get the guys into boot camp shape.
Yeah, it's been and the neat thing about it is over the years, and we were just looking at the resume for Warriors Incorporated just before we came on, Taco, and we've done something like 51 television shows, movies, and of those, a bunch of them have won Academy Awards and Emmys and so on and so forth. So there's something about the Cap and Dive Warriors Inc. method that works.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need a C-130 consultant, I will fly for free. I will empty your waste cans and I will do whatever you want. I don't even want to get paid. I just want to hang out with you and drink beer and work with the guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the fun of it. But it tickles me every time I talk to a Hercules driver, a herky jerk. And I think about how people are bitching today about flying in commercial airlines.
Right.
And whining about separation and whining about masks and so on and so forth. I always feel like I want to say, listen, pal, have you ever done a transpac in a C-130? and until you have, shut up.
What's funny is, as a C-130 guy, we have a special relationship with our crew. I mean, we were different. You would go out as a unit, self-contained unit, 2 pilots, maybe 3. You've got the load master, the flight engineer, the navigator, the guys in the back, the mechs. You went out on the road with them, and you would go to the bars with them, and you just had a much better relationship than a different relationship than like an infantry guy or even helicopter units had with their enlisted guys. So I really enjoyed my time as a C-130 guy. I mean, you would sit up in the cockpit and you look back, and there's a guy reading Lee's Lieutenants, or I'm working on my PhD.
Different breed of cat.
I'm working on my PhD, and you're like, what? I don't PhD? Yeah. I've already finished my master's. I'm working on my PhD, and you're going, just incredible amount of talent that you had. Yeah. And the fact that we could go somewhere, fix the airplane, break down conveniently sometimes, break down, and then they would fix the airplane, but travel around carrying gear. I told my son I carried 2 packs with me, 1 cold weather, 1 hot weather, because we take off out of Cherry Point. We go to Norway, we go to Iceland, maybe down to England, drop off some stuff, Bitburg, Germany, pick up a bunch of beer, down to Rota, Spain, Azores, and then Bermuda and home. And it would take 2 weeks to do a trip.
Sure.
That's why I was always thinking.
And the amazing thing about the C-130 guys, the turboprop jocks, you never think of them, or at least I didn't up until Vietnam. I never thought of them as combat types. I just said, these guys are truck drivers, and they haul tomatoes from point A to point B, and that's about the size of it. And then came Quezon. Yeah. And it was some of the, you guys had a 130 blown up.
It took a mortar. I mean, they called us mortar magnets for a reason.
Yeah.
And that guy took a mortar in the wing.
Killed a couple friends of mine when that thing went up. But what would amaze me would be the 130s would come in, and they had this system. I think it was SATs, or Now that's short air fuel protectors, but it was a system whereby the 130 could come in, drop the tail ramp, never even really put the wheels on the ground,
Right.
and pop parachutes, and it would just haul cargo right out
Oh
of
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
in a long line. And I saw that happen. And
yeah.
I said, my God. And you could see, because the fuselage was silver, if it was a Marine bird, if it was an Air Force bird, and they painted them OD, and but with a Marine bird, it had a silver fuselage, and you could see the bullet holes go into the damn thing, And I said, whoa, whoever's inside that thing is got some rounds rattling around in there, and you'd literally see stitches of bullet holes open up on the fuselage skin.
Right.
And that changed my whole opinion about C-130 crews.
Well, we had Top Merchant was one of our navigators, and Top was a young lance corporal or corporal at Caisson. And one day we had to have the uniform inspection. So like you got the alphas, you got the Charlies, you're in Top's in his alphas. And I'd never seen him wear his ribbons, and his rack was up over his shoulder all the way up. And I'm like, holy crap, Top. We're right before the inspection. And I'm going, I'm just, I've got my National Defense Firewatch ribbon back in 91. It was real easy for me. I could just put it on there. And, yeah, it was kind of funny, but Top would tell some stories, and it was incredible. He kind of did the same thing. He goes, I was tired of getting shot at being an infantry guy, so I went and become a C-130 navigator. I figured get paid extra, go fly around the world, and have fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of guys get into it. They say because of flight pay. Well, no, yeah, that's fine, but I know what the deal is. You're chasing that adventure that Hemingway was talking about.
Well, you've done so much. One of the charities that I support, Purple Hearts Reunited. I've got. You did. There we go. Purple Hearts Reunited. Zach Fike, you did a phenomenal voiceover for us that we can never thank you enough for, and it played in the entire stadium baseball game. It was incredible, and I just wanted to thank you again for doing that and taking the time to read that.
I'm glad I could do it, Taco. And interestingly, coming up in November, I did for the Disabled American Veterans of America. I did a complete documentary about 100 years of organizations like Disabled American Veterans and the Purple Heart guys, and so on and so forth. So if you look around your TV listings in early November. It's on the military channel, military history channel, I think they call it now. And look for that. You'll see another effort that I make. And I bring that up not only to flack it, but just to say that I get approached to do a lot of those things.
Right.
And I guess, I'm one of the Hollywood guys that's accessible, but I love to do them, and I'm happy to do them. In my view, it's part of a continued service to the United States and to the military for me.
Well, I can't thank you enough for that. And also, I got a message. Hershey Miyamura said to say hello, and Ken and Hershey from Gallup. So
terrific. Well, good. I remember those guys.
Yeah. You've come to Skyball. I mean, that's how we met years ago at Skyball.
Sure.
Yeah. You played Patton. You did Colonial Marine.
Still haunts me. But it was fun. I enjoyed the hell out of it. My wife Julia, came up with the uniform and all of the Patton-esque items in it.
Yeah. Do you still have it?
It's around somewhere, I'm sure, in one of the wardrobe closets. But that was fun, and Skyball was terrific, and I guess continues to be. I haven't been for a couple of years, but
yeah, well, we because of Corona, and other things, I think is on hold this year, and I'm not sure we're going to be doing it. And it's a shame too, because really enjoyed seeing everybody as volunteers. We all get together same time next year,
Yeah, and the volunteers did such a great job. I mean, there was always something new and interesting and surprising that went on at Skyball in Dallas, and I miss it. But it's it's kind of you don't want to overdo it. You know,
Sure,
you
sure.
don't want to just be, a hanger on. So, if have
Well,
a chance.
next time we get you guys down here, I'm going to let you drive the Ferret, my British Ferret.
Okay.
And then I've got the Fox too, so I can put you and Julia up in the turret. We'll go through the drive-through at Chick-fil-A. That's always fun. They get a lot of looks.
Sure.
We'll go to the Starbucks and go grab a coffee, and
I remember those little ferrets from Beirut. The British brought them over. And they were interesting.
Yeah, they're neat little vehicles. If you ever want one, I know Jay Leno has one. Arnold Schwarzenegger, no, he's got a tank.
Pasadena. Those things are a bit thin-skinned for me.
Hey, the way things are going, you may need one.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, I got it.
Well, Dill, listen, I've kept you on for an hour, and once again, I cannot thank you enough for spending the time with me on Tall Tale Tuesday, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. It was great seeing you again, brother, and give Julia a hug for me.
Absolutely will do, Taco. Kindred spirits. Anytime you need me, I'm here for you, buddy. Thanks.
Hoorah, brother. Take care, sir. All right, folks. Thank you so much, Dale. I will zap you out here. Oh, can we do this? Wait a minute, Dale. All right, Dale. Thank you so much, sir. Well, folks, that was Dale Dye, and I can't thank him enough for spending time with me today. If you have a chance, go ahead and share this, like it, tell your friends. It's going to be Taco Tall Tales on Tuesday. Next week, I'm looking at Don Graves, who is a young corporal on Iwo Jima. And Don's in his 90s and still dancing and having a great time. Sings like no one's business. He does a really good job. May actually get him to sing for us. But Don Graves will be next week. And then I'm looking at Mike Struble, a buddy of mine who wrote the email that went viral, and they created a movie called Taking Chance off of his viral email of after action report about bringing a young Marine home to his family. More coming. I'm going to start grabbing people from World War II and see what I can get going. You guys have a great one. Thank you so much for joining me today, and look forward to having you on another Tuesday. Hoorah! Semper Fi.